throughout his entirety of his career so far, and he's still very young, but what we had seen from Juan Soto his first 3-4 years in the league was him becoming one of, if not the best pure hitters in the game of baseball. And then last year just kind of got chalked up to it being a weird year, and he was traded. And now this year, we're seeing a little bit more of what we saw from last year, where he's been largely struggling for a big part of the season. And it just kind of confuses me. What is going on with Juan Soto? He was an MVP favorite coming into this year and seems to still be struggling. What do you see?
Yeah, I don't know if he's in between philosophically. What I mean by that is, anytime you go from a team that doesn't have much expectations, I'm not saying this falls all on him, that you go out and do your thing with no expectations whatsoever for a team concept. Now, all of a sudden, you get traded to San Diego and the expectations go through the roof for your team. And then, of course, for him, signing that contract and being able to deliver what we're used to seeing. What I think in between, I mean, a little bit is, does he want to walk? Does he want to hit? Is he in between in his approach? And I think getting on base, that's a cool thing. That's great. The whole debate forever was on Joey Votto, right? Joey Votto, should he be hitting 40 home runs? Should he hit 320, or should he be an on-base percentage monster? And I think that kind of falls in a little bit now with Soto because of his, I guess at a young age, he wasn't striking out, swinging and missing a lot. To your point, he was doing all the things that kind of project him to be a superstar. And I still think he'll get there. But now in a lineup where there's so much expected, don't know if that's getting to him a little bit. And their lineup should be great. And it hasn't really been great yet. And I think we have a chance to see that kind of play out this year if everyone gets back to a little bit more of a normal kind of season.
It's interesting. It's almost like what you said with him and Votto. It's, what do you want to be? Do you want to be an on-base percentage guy or an average guy or a hit for power guy? And with those two specifically, it almost feels like they have too much talent to be considered like, I just want to get on base and have my approach and take my walks. Whereas the team themselves would probably rather them not be that guy and would rather them maybe get out a few more times, but drive the ball in the gap, swing the bat a little bit more, as opposed to like an 8-9 guy in your lineup where you want them to work counts and get on base and have that sort of approach.
Yeah, and see, that kind of goes with what I was saying. When you're on a team that doesn't have the surroundings that he does now in Washington, you're not going to get pitched too much. You're going to be a high percentage walk guy, and then when you run into those mistakes, you're going to crush them. And I don't think that's the narrative anymore. I'm not saying pitchers are not afraid of him anymore, but when you start getting a little bit more of a normal approach and you expand or open a door, the hitter has to close that door. And he hasn't done it yet. He will. He's good enough. He will. But at this point, they're getting to him in a rate of success that we've not been used to seeing.
In that same lineup, Fernando Tatis is back from his suspension and already making a big impact on the field and on that lineup. I think they really struggled to start the year. Seems to be coming around a little bit, but again, against the Dodgers earlier this year, about a week ago, he hit 2 homers in a game. So what does Fernando Tatis specifically? I mean, this lineup has lots of stars, but it seemed like when he came back, it was a spark they needed. What does Tatis mean to the San Diego Padres?
Well, first of all, he has a lot to prove. He has a lot to prove to himself, the organization, the fan base, for what he's gone through the last year and a half, right? The injuries and the mishap and all that. So there's high energy there that he brings to the ball club. Sometimes that high energy can be misinterpreted and there could be some mistakes out of it. But I think he's learning to place the outfield now, where he's going to probably be for forever. And he brings that high energy at the plate when he's ready to go from pitch one. It's an interesting dynamic because he's an aggressive hitter early. They've got a few guys aggressive early. It's kind of a mixed bag lineup. When it's all going well and running on its cylinders, it's going to be tough to beat. I really believe they're going to beat some people up. But to this point, it hasn't really been running on all cylinders. Bogarts is a tremendous talent. We know what his capabilities are. Machado has gone to another level really since Tatis' disappearance. So if they can get everybody on the same track, pull in the same direction, sometimes there's fractions in there. And, a ball club has to work those things out to really get humming. And I don't see why San Diego can't be one of the front runners at the end of the year if they do all those things I mentioned.
This is a bit of a different direction, but before we move on from the Padres, I need you to pull out your crystal ball here. The Padres are one of the teams that have specifically come out and said they are going to be in on Shohei Ohtani at the end of this year when and if he becomes the free agent that he's expected to become at the end of the year. Do you really believe that this Padres team that is paying all of these guys all of this money can be real contenders in the Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes?
I don't see how, but I didn't see. I mean, how many years ago when they went all in and made some big moves
Yeah.
and it didn't work? And I was an advocate of that. I really thought it was going to work. It didn't. And now they're kind of redoing that again. You know, they're basically saying we want to be relevant, we want to beat the Dodgers, we want to win the World Series, and they're putting their money in that asset on the field to do that. Now, again, there's a lot of things that have to go on in the clubhouse for that to work out. I just don't see how it's possible to be in a place where they could be a bidder for Shohei Ohtani. Maybe their place is to try to make it as high and enrich it as much as possible that if the Dodgers do get in and have to get him, it causes their, maybe that's part of it. But, it's a battle for California right now. And if he does become that free agent, I'm sure there are going to be other players involved, but those that you talked about will be, they're going to be bidding a lot.
Yeah. Probably around, definitely, I think it's to the point where it's over $500 million, which is, it's mind blowing to even say that. But
I will say this, and I know that we've reached salaries we never thought we would see. I'm happy for the players that they are getting to attain some of those, but you have to balance this. It's going to seem like a weird statement. How much longer can Ohtani dominate at both ends in the length of that contract?
That's what I was about to ask you.
And I think that is really the $1 million question. I would front load it, but I wouldn't expect him to have to do this for 10 years. At some point, there's going to be a decision made to dilute one of the two. I hope I'm wrong on this subject. I hope he can do it forever. But the human mind just can't grasp him doing this for a 10-year period like he's doing it right now.
No, I'm in the same boat as you there, and I'm arguably the biggest Shohei Ohtani fan there is. And I hope, I can tell you this right now, I hope he does what he's doing right now for 15 more years. However, is that realistic? So he's going to be signed to this big deal that's going to be, 10 years minimum, like 10, 11 years in that range? And I don't think even he knows how long he's going to do what he's doing right now, pitching and hitting at this elite level. And as a team, you kind of have to wonder a little bit, well, we're paying him as an elite pitcher and an elite power hitter in this game for over a decade period, but how long are you getting him doing both? And as I think you agree as well, I hope it's the entirety of the contract. I just don't know, and I don't think anybody knows how long he's going to do what he's doing now.
Yeah, I'm not saying this would happen, but in a world where I could spend somebody else's money, I would tie it contractually to that. Meaning, as long as he's doing both, we can pay him at X factor. If he becomes a one-way player, then. But I don't think that's how it's going to work. That's how I would work it. And that's how, if I was on the other side of the business side, making sure that I enhance my team to the best of its ability, but also he has the luxury, minus an injury that prevents him from doing both. He has the luxury for a great fallback one way or the other.
Yeah.
And he's just amazing.